and start on chapter 2, contract law. Okay, so this is actually one of the smallest sections out of the whole book, so we're going to go over this relatively quickly. Okay, so contract is something legally enforced by law. So if you break a contract, there can be a fine, there can be, jail time. It depends on the contract, but it's something legally enforced by law. Tort, on the other hand, is something private, civil, non-contractual. So it's nothing written in a contract. It's something as more like your rights. So it's kind of like, let's say me and you are neighbors, and I built my fence on your property, right? As a property owner, obviously in your contract, it doesn't say, if anyone ever builds a fence on your property, take them to court, right? But as the property owner, you have the right to build and put whatever you want on your property. So what you can do is take me to court, and the court, all they'll do is just, bring out the layout of our properties, and they'll say, Sara, that is that person's property, you need to move the fence, right? Now, there's intentional tort and unintentional tort. Intentional tort is I knew that was your property and I built the fence. Or unintentional tort is I really didn't know that that was your property. I really thought that it was mine, right? And all that will happen is I just am told to move it. And obviously, if I don't move it, then there'll be consequences like a fine or something. Now, when I saw these, I think of it like contract laws, like a Supreme Court, judge, jury, something more, very serious. And tort is something like, like the TV shows like Judge Judy, or for Hispanics, Caso Cerrado, right? It's something like those are important things that happen, and they're actual stories, but it's something that you won't need a judge and a jury for. Just the judge is fine, right? So it's something more private between two people. It's not a whole court case. Okay. The next one is 4 elements of a legal contract. Now, 4 elements of a legal contract. They might ask you on your test, they'll say all of the following are elements of a legal contract except, so you need to know all 4 to know which one isn't, right? So the first thing is offer and acceptance. Most times when I ask people, right, I say, who offers and who accepts? There's the company and there's the client. Who offers, who accepts? Most people say company offers, client accepts. Now, for this, it's the opposite. The applicant, the person trying to be a client, is going to offer, and the company will either accept or deny. So I always think of it like if you were to apply for a job somewhere, right? What do? You fill out the application, you send the application. What you're doing is saying, hey, here I am, hire me. And the company that you applied for, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, sorry, we filled the position, or yeah, we want you as our employee, right? So what did you do? You gave up your information, you gave all your information and all that to the company, and the company are the ones that hired you or didn't. So same thing, the company, we either approve you to be our client or we deny you, right? So the offer is done by the parties. Second bullet point says the parties must be of legal age, mentally competent, and not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Now, what does this mean? It means that you can't do business with someone that's underage. Why? Because if you did business with someone, let's say that was 16, then the policy would be invalid, because they need to be of age, mentally competent, and not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, right? Because there's a lot of stories of people under the influence, right? And they're usually not good stories. So we want to make sure that everyone is legal age, mentally competent, and not under the influence. The next thing is legal purpose. You have to have a legal reason why you're doing something. So there was a story, on the news that said that there was a woman, she was found dead in her house, and they actually found out that the husband was the one that committed the murder. And the way they found out was because a couple weeks prior, he actually raised her coverage on the life insurance so that when he killed her, that he would get a bigger sum of money. Now, obviously, murder is illegal, so he didn't get any money. He was caught, he was put into jail. So that's why they say you must have a legal reason why you're getting something, right? You can't get a policy because you're going to kill somebody. It's not legal. Okay. Consideration. Now, consideration is a word that will come out multiple times in the book. You'll see it in this chapter. You'll see it again, I think, in chapter 5. So there's a couple places you'll see it. So most likely, if you see it more than once on your book, you'll see it on your test, right? Consideration is something of value that each party brings, right? So the applicant or the client, what do they bring to the table? They bring premium, right? Because premium are your payments, premium payments, and all the information they're bringing, their personal information, their social security number, their height, their weight, their name, their driver's license number. That's what they bring to the table. Now, what does the company bring? The death benefit. Okay, when you're reading a question on your test, make sure you see, are they asking about the client? Or are they asking about the company? Because based on who they're asking about, the answer will change. Characteristics in an insurance contract. So the first thing is adhesion. Adhesion, I like to think of adhesive, right? Something that mends everything together. So the policy, right, is everything that you put into the policy in one, right? Everything that you chose, everything is put into one place. Now, who types the policy? The company, right? The company is the one that's going to type the policy and send it to you. Now, if you were to get the policy and you read the policy and you're like, I don't like the fifth sentence. Change the fifth sentence and I'll sign. Do you think the company is going to say, sure, we'll change it? No, right? They're going to say, here's your policy, the way we typed it. You take it the way it is, or you leave it, right? So you have a take it or leave it situation. Okay. The last bullet point is where most people get confused, and it's not because of what the sentence says. It's the word in the sentence. The word ambiguity confuses a lot of people. So the word ambiguity means, so let me read the statement first. Any ambiguities is resolved in favor of the insured. And remember that the insured with an ED, that's the client. Okay, so that means ambiguities is resolved in the favor of the insured. So ambiguities is something that, like, let's say a statement or sentence in the policy was not very specific. So let's say it said they get $1 million, right? Who's they? The client, the company? We don't know, right? So if the client was to ever take the company to the court will be in favor of the insured. So that means the client will most likely win. Okay, that's ambiguity. Conditional. Certain conditions need to be met in order for something to happen. If, let's say, I'm your agent and I'm like, here's your death benefit, right? What needs to happen in order for the company to pay that death benefit out? Someone needs to pass away, right? Someone passes away, death benefit gets paid out. Aleatory. Aleatory is the exchange of values, but they're not equal. So an example is, if the example they use there is, if you're paying $600 a year and the company's paying $100,000 in death benefit, obviously one is higher than the other. Now, an example that made sense to me was, let's say you go to a pawn shop, right? You take a ring, a watch, or something like that. When they give you a price, they'll say, I'll give you this much for the watch, right? Most likely the price they're giving you is less than what the watch actually is worth, right? Now, if you really need the money, are you going to take the money and give the watch? Yeah, right? So what did you just do? You exchanged values, but they weren't equal, right? One was more than the other. Okay? Unilateral. Unilateral, the word uni means one. So that is the key thing. Unilateral means one party is legally bound. Now, the parties are company, client. Now, who do you think is legally bound? The client or the company, right? If you're the client and you stop paying your policy, do you think the police are going to come knocking at your door saying, you didn't pay for your life insurance policy, you're going to jail? No, right? If you stop paying, then you don't have a policy anymore, but you don't go to jail for it. Now, if the company doesn't get certain signatures or do certain things, what happens? Agents can lose their license, companies can lose their license. So the company is legally bound by law to do certain things. So unilateral means only one party is legally bound. So the next one we're going to go over is personal. So personal is something that is just a policy between the client and the company directly. Next page. So the next page is, I'm going to go over in a kind of double way, because it just makes more sense to go over it by pairs than individually. So insurance policy is just everything written in a policy. Now, the first two I'm going to go over, I'm going to say the first two, I'm going to give you guys a second to find them, and then I'll go over them. So the first thing is we're going to go over is representation and warranties. They're not next to each other, but they're on the same page. Representation, warranty. Now, if you guys remember in school, they used to write on the board, they used to say, you know, let's say dogs are the best pets you can ever have, right? And they'll ask you, is this a fact or an opinion, right? And you would say it's an opinion, because some people might say that, no, cats are the best, or no, snakes are the best, but it's by every person, right? So some people will have that opinion, some people won't. Now, when I ask a client, how much do you weigh, or what's your height, most likely their answer is going to be something from the last time they remember, right? If the last time you got, you know, weighed, or last time you checked your height was, you know, years ago, most likely what you're telling me is not fact. It's going to be your opinion. It's from what you remember. So a representation is a statement said by the best of one's knowledge, right? An example is, if you guys have any kids around, just cover their ears, right? An example is, you know, Santa. If you ask a kid when they're a child, Santa real, they'll say, yes, 100%, right? But as an adult, you ask now, we know that that's not true. So at the time, to them, they were telling you cold, hard fact. But now we know that that's not the truth. So a representation is something that a client, maybe at that time, they believed it was cold, hard fact, but we're going to take it as a representation. Now, a warranty is fact. If I ask someone, what's their social security number, and they whip out their social security card, that's a fact. It's right there. I can see it, right? So a representation is much like an opinion. It's something that someone says that maybe they believe it's true, but it doesn't mean it is true. And warranties are facts. They are true statements, okay? The next two we're going to go over is misrepresentation and material misrepresentation. Misrepresentation, material misrepresentation. Misrepresentation are lies, okay? Just straight up lies, okay? Material misrepresentation, easy way to think about it is lies on somewhere, like written somewhere that you can find it, right? Material misrepresentation is something that you would see that maybe would change a company's opinion about covering you or not, okay? So misrepresentation, material misrepresentation. Fraud. Fraud, I'm going to go over by itself. And fraud is if I'm sitting down with someone, right? Let's say, and I ask them the medical questions and they're answering yes to everything. Yes, I have this medical problem. Yes, I have this medical problem. Yes, I have this medical problem. Most likely, the company is not going to approve this person because they're too high of a risk. And I know that as an agent. Now, what do? They say, yes, I do have that medical problem. And instead of putting yes, like they said, I put no. And then I, the agent, am messing with the application, and that's fraud, right? Agents, we cannot tamper with the application. We have to put exactly what the client says. Okay, the next two is materiality and rescission. Materiality, rescission. Now, materiality is someone didn't get the information necessary in order to make a sane decision, right? Someone failed to disclose information, someone failed to say something, right? Now, that would mean you're an injured party. That's materiality. Rescission is you are that injured party, and now you feel like I've been cheated, I've been lied to, or I wasn't told the right information. I want to avoid this policy. And that's what rescission is. Rescission is you're voiding the policy as if it never happened. So if I sat down with a client and they didn't tell me, or they told me no, that they didn't have cancer or they didn't have this issue, right? That is a big thing that companies would say, you know, that policy is not valid because they did not tell us the right information, okay? Materiality, rescission. Next one is concealment. Concealment is, you know, to withhold information. Another word they like to use is the word omitting. So it's kind of like if I said something and they just, it's not that they lied, but they didn't say it either, right? So it's kind of like if you guys were younger with your parents, right? There's lying to your parent and there's keeping something from them, right? So same thing, you're either lying to the company or you're keeping something from the company, but either one is bad, right? So concealment is to keep the information to yourself and not tell it. Okay. Now, 6 specifications for an insurance policy. These are pretty much self-explanatory, so I usually don't go over them, but I'm going to go over them really briefly. But you guys can just read them on your own. Okay. So the parties to the contract need to be present. The person being insured needs to be present. Statements of insurable interest that exist, right? So if I'm putting, a person on a policy, I need to state, why is that person on the policy with this other person? Oh, they're the spouse, they're the kid. I need to state that on the policy. The risk insured against, right? The medical questions, things like that. The time period in which the policy will be enforced. So if it's a 35-year policy, then we need to put that's how long that policy is going to be for. And then we need to state how much they're going to be paying, their premium, the premium mode, which means how often are they paying for their policy, right? Are they paying monthly, annually? And the methods that we use to calculate the premium. Now, what's not required is the insurance financial rating. So we do not need the insurance company's financial rating. But all of the 6 that I just went over, that is required, or else the policy is not considered valid.